Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lighthouse Sessions. Today, I'm really excited because I have my friend Neil Wilkins with me. And for those of you who are tired of being bombarded by the know-it-alls that know nothing, Neil and I are going to bust a few myths around, and Neil, correct me on the verbiage, but basically how we get found with SEO today in both Google and predominantly in the large language models. What is that field called? Just so we start with the truth.
Well, it depends who you ask, but some people are calling it AIO, so AI optimization. Other people call it GEO, generative engine optimization. Hey, do we all love a few acronyms, don't we?
And I love that even some of these acronyms aren't quite accurate, but let's start with this. So I like to refer to us as the adults in the room. We've been around, we've earned our experience. A lot of what I'm seeing and hearing is, quite frankly, utter and absolute nonsense. A lot of advice on how to get found in ChatGPT specifically and generative AI in general. What are some of the big things you're seeing that make you cringe when you go, "Oh my God, that's not true. Please don't follow that path"?
Yeah, I think it is. It feels like the vultures are circling, doesn't it? It really does, Jeff. I mean, I think,
Yeah.
everywhere you look in social media, in the media in general, you talk to your friends and your colleagues, and it feels as though the hype is almost sort of self-serving. It really does. And I think what I kind of fear is that there will be, let's call them thought leaders with a lowercase t and a lowercase l, who are preaching that they are experts on this
Yeah.
topic. And yet nobody on this planet, Sam Altman, Mark Zuckerberg, you and I, none of us have been here before. And
Yeah.
I think there's a really refreshing kind of feeling when you hear somebody say, I've been following this. I think I kind of get it. I'm going with the feel of this. And I'm seeing there are some trends, but I would not call myself a specialist or an expert. It's those people then I think we should be listening to, rather than those who are publishing the latest YouTube video of, I can solve your world with AI. I
Yeah.
really fear for people who are jumping onto that and thinking, oh, there's the answer.
I actually just had a chilling thought, and now I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. I'm seeing a lot of, and I call them bro bots. They're these young guys, and for some reason it's always guys, and they're very confident in stating what they believe to be true without any foundation for that belief. And I realized that they're relying on ChatGPT, and ChatGPT saying, "Wow, you're such a good boy. You're so smart. Yes, that's brilliant." I'm sorry, but ChatGPT tends to hallucinate, but it's also a program that's designed to make you feel good. So even your crazy ideas, it's going to say, "Yeah, that's brilliant." And what I just realized is these young people are speaking with the confidence because ChatGPT, quote unquote, told them to, without having earned that experience to say this is correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost an AI delusion, isn't it? Really, that
Yes.
this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy that if ChatGPT says I'm great, then I'm great. You can, of course, as you well know, Jeff, you can, of course, ask GPT to not serve you in that way and to actually be brutally honest. And if your latest ideation for a project or a concept or a new business is a load of rubbish, it'll tell you that that is what it is, and you can actually prompt it successfully
Yep.
to give that voice of truth and that real honesty. But of course, who's actually going to do that when it can make you feel great if you don't?
Yep. Well, and I think that's the danger we have here. I see this trust deficit building, and I think it's because, number one, AI in general, but ChatGPT, it will make things up. It will fabricate things because it wants you to feel good about the result. It doesn't understand the implications of being confident and loud and wrong. And I think that's you and I, and my mission is to end, I'm going to call it inadequate, inappropriate, quite frankly wrong use of AI, because, and as you said, I have a setting on mine. I'm autistic and I can be blunt. So I have a mode 0 where it tells me exactly what it sees wrong with what I do. And I don't think most people want that. Most people want to, oh, you're great. Let's hang that. I had one that said, oh, that's a work of art. It should be hung up in the Louvre. And I'm like, stop blowing smoke up my arse. You know?
It just reminds me of the famous Jack Nicholson quote of "You can't handle the truth," and I think it just comes back in in scale, doesn't it? Really, with AI, because I think AI is trying its best. I mean, like you, I've obviously played a lot over the years now with ChatGPT, and I do love ChatGPT. I'm not here to disrespect all of the the great work that OpenAI and all the other players are doing.
Yeah.
And I do feel certainly with my version of GPT, it is doing its best. It is trying to give me and it's interesting I say trying, because you could argue, well, no, it's just an algorithm that's returning to you a result. But it kind of feels as though it's increasingly trying to give me an honest view, something that resonates with Neil, something that is almost Neil looking in the mirror. And that's what I like about the more time you spend with it, the more you are honest with it and get it to be honest with you. It is, in essence, really like looking in the mirror. It's going to critique your ideas. It's going to give you feedback. It is going to say it's wrong when it's wrong, if you encourage it to do that. And I love this kind of mirror effect, because I think that can be really healthy, if used in the right kind of way.
And I think that's, I have this theory. I say garbage in, garbage out, brilliance in, brilliance out. It's almost like the lines are diverging. And, if you are an expert and you actually know what you're talking about, you're going to get great results. And honestly, I think that's a modern miracle. And I celebrate with you the amazing, and I'll give the credit to the engineers and the coders who are making it happen. But I think what's missing is this generation. There's a group of people who have no critical thinking skills, and everything they take from AI is a given. And it's like, no, critical thinking, people.
Yeah, and it's ironic, isn't it, really, that the AIs themselves can enable that critical thinking if you prompt them in that way. So if you want to learn how to critically think, AI is going to be your best study buddy. I mean, it really is. It'll teach you anything and everything about everything and anything. So to me, those missing pieces of the jigsaw puzzle are available, but you've got to know they're there to know to prompt them. And this is the biggest challenge I see, is that we could almost become a self-fulfilling prophecy here, because you can only know what you know unless you can break out of that AI box and say, actually, I'm going to think of this differently, or I'm going to kind of challenge myself to kind of almost approach something from a different angle or perspective. If you don't know to do that, or you don't think to do that, you're always going to get the same output. And of course, then that becomes the truth. So it's almost a catch-22, isn't it? Without that kind of innovative kind of thinking or ideas.
Yeah, and I think that's I see lots of studies, and again, there's a lot of doom and gloom, and I suspect some of that is the algorithms trying to feed one another. But I think I saw an MIT study that said something about our brains are shrinking or whatever. And I'm going to side with you on this, Neil, because I'm a better, sharper thinker, and I think about things from more angles because I challenge, and again, it's not a vending machine. I don't drop in my quarter and expect something out. I will challenge it. And one of my favorite things is I'll say, use the Socratic method and help me learn this. And again, this is the first tool in history that can teach us how to be better at being ourselves and how to use the tool better.
And I certainly, when I'm doing teaching and encouraging others to explore with their own learning preferences, you've described some of your preferences and the way that you absorb information and interact with it. A lot of us do things in different ways, and that to me is the beauty of this, is that give a piece of information, you'll interpret it in one way, I'll interpret it in another, and if we're both using our AIs that are well trained in the art of understanding both Jeff and Neil in equal measure in our own little kind of ecospheres, then it gives us an opportunity to learn with our own styles, with our own preferences in a way that works for us. And so there's a huge opportunity here for this real personalization. And often people say to me, well, what is the current sort of best thinking about where we should position AI in our work? And I always say it's personalization. It really is, because if you can get this right, your flavor of what you might define as artificial intelligence is yours, and mine is mine, and the next person's is the next person. And I love that about it, because this is hyper personalization at scale. I'm using cliches here, but it's so true. It is very much my GPT, and I know we can see that if you go into Chat GPT, but this is how it's playing out. And I think the more we use it, the more personalized it becomes, and that excites me even more.
Well, and I think we will get to the actual what you do in a second, but I think it's so exciting because literally we can tweak and tweak and tweak until it serves us, and I think I used to read textbooks for fun. Okay, I'm strange. But what I love about GPT is I can say, based on what you know about me, help me understand my learning style and then help me improve it. And literally, this is like fine-tuned learning at an unscaled level. And yeah, I think, we've lost sight of the miracle. 3 years ago, this was a miracle. And now we're like, oh, it's slow, it's buggy, it's this, it's that. And it's like, let's just pause and recognize that, as a species, we've gotten to the point we have a computer tool that mimics our intelligence. And yet we're still complaining because it doesn't do this or doesn't do that. And it's like baby steps, people. I mean, can you imagine having this conversation 10 years ago and talking about what might happen one day and we might have this tool? People would think you're crazy.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because that would have been science fiction then, really, wouldn't it? It literally was. It was at the time the stuff of movies, and it's great, and it's exciting to think back and almost put yourselves, in those kind of shoes and in those moments, because now we have it. I think what we possibly are doing here is we're all falling into that immediacy trap, because now we've got it. Okay, what's the next thing? And I want it right now, right here, right now. And yet the people who are getting the most value from AI right now are those who are willing to spend the time and go deep with it. They're spending the time to reflect, the time to kind of train it, the time to brief it, the time to live with it, really, both professionally and personally. And if you're not willing to do that, willing to do those hard yards, you are always going to get a generic version that is the same as the next person. The deeper you go, the more you're willing to commit to it. It's quite simple. The better the return you'll get.
I love that. And yeah, I think we've gotten to this point of, we're spoiled by this modern, we've got food delivery, at our fingertips. We've got data at our fingertips. I miss the days when people sat around and pondered things, but the good news is now I can ponder things faster. So let's talk about Neil, because this show is really about the entrepreneur. You and I can nerd out about generative AI or other things, but how did you come to where you are, to the point where you can say with confidence, this is good output, that's garbage? What are your street cred for being an entrepreneur? Let's start with the fun stuff.
I mean, going way back, and it's lovely. Thanks, Jeff, giving me the chance to do that reflection, because we don't spend enough time doing this, do we? But I mean, taking many years back, I graduated with a psychology degree here in the UK, and started off in what was called human resources at the time, basically people development as it's now called, and spent a few years using the psychology in that field, particularly in recruitment. Realized that at the time that kind of was sort of me, but there was something a lot more. So found myself, literally fell into the world of marketing. Just happened to be that I was employed by an organization who had some opportunities in marketing, and I was asked to move into that team. And it was like, oh, yikes, I don't know what I'm letting myself in for. But instantly found myself at home. and very, very quickly started to build a career moving around lots of different organizations. I always said I moved around a lot. One, because I needed to play catch up with my peers who had started off in marketing, and I was a couple of years behind. But more likely, though, it was actually so that I wouldn't get caught from all the mistakes I was making sort of in my wake. But I basically found myself working through a whole range of different industries, from financial services through to predominantly in latter days tech. So I did a lot of work in mobile telephony and in mobile infrastructure, on the marketing side, but was very fortunate to work with some really smart minds, both in terms of R&D, product development, and communication. So I kind of learned did my time, learned the skills that I needed for my later career, sort of, through a whole range of different corporates. And then about 15, 16 years into doing that, decided, hey, I think I could make a go of this myself. So basically started my own business, marketing consultancy, which became a marketing agency and has now returned to marketing consultancy. So it's gone through some iterations, as businesses do. And really exploring and experimenting and always having that tech feel. So with emerging technologies, seeing how I can bring those into people's imagination and actually bring them to life within client businesses. So it's always been kind of cutting edge, say sometimes, as with AI, bleeding edge opportunities. And so I don't play in a space that is particularly comfortable, because there's always a lot of resistance. A lot of times people don't get it. And that can obviously open up a lot of challenges. But because I feel it in my heart as well as in my head, and I love this stuff, every day feels like a learning day, cliche, but every day feels like a day when I'm just starting out. And having spent now some 25 years also as an educator, so I teach through Cambridge Marketing College here in the UK, obviously marketing at various levels, I get a chance to work with some of the emerging talent within the marketing sphere. So I get to work with clients as well as, younger sort of, people starting on their journey in marketing. So it is super exciting. I can play with the tech. I can bring the tech to life within client work. And through my podcast, I can share the best bits, not saying I'm the expert, but just kind of evangelize some of the best bits that I see to the world at large. So I have some fun, I have to say.
And, honestly, I tell people I'm an expert at being curious. That's the only thing I can claim expertise in, because everybody else is shifting so quickly. I'm just a curious learner. And I think you and I are very similar. We love to learn things, and then we love to teach others how to do it and repeat. I'm going to share an insight I had the other day. I was teaching a group of seniors who were all told they were too old to use AI. And one of my favorite participants, she's in her 70s, and she was so beat down. She came to the course and she said, I don't know why I'm here. It's kind of pointless. I'm too old to learn technology. And I said, I'm going to give you a little bit of something to think about and take away. In my experience, the best results come from people who are older, who are curious and know how to ask questions and have the expertise to say, that's a really bad answer. And oh my God, she lit up, because, she thought she was coming to some coding class or something. And I'm like, no. ChatGPT is about learning how to learn and learning how to ask questions. And I think that's, I'm a big fan of the Dunning-Kruger effect. I always look at it, and you being an educator, you've probably encountered it. Simply put, novices at something overestimate their skill set because they don't know what they don't know, whereas experts at something underestimate their abilities because they know what they don't know. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. And again, I love the enthusiasm of the youth, but it's like, pause and ask yourself, are you producing value or noise? And I think that's where you and I come in, is we have this curiosity and the foundation to go, no, it doesn't sound right. ChatGPT, give me a better answer.
And I think I love that story, Jeff, because I think for me, it just reminds me that there's something really key going on here. And I know you'll have seen this, because like me, you've been through a number of cycles, should we say, kind of, and seen the world kind of go through and recover and then come back stronger. I think for me, the difference with this kind of AI emergence is the fact that, and again, that was a lovely story because it isn't about the tech. I think, a lot of the stuff that we've had before, the dawn of the internet, for example, is you had to know how to use a computer. You had to
Yep.
know how to plug stuff in, the right stuff. You could get lost. You could break things. Social
Yep.
media came in. It's like, oh, is this right for me? For some people, yes. For others, no. This is different because it's all about the conversation. The fact you can press the little microphone button on your favorite AI and take your hands away from the keyboard, it is all about conversation. And that is just human talking to a machine, talking to a machine. It's conversation. There is no tech involved. And that, to me, is the game changer here. And I think that there should be no friction from a marketing world, in terms of customer experience. It's all about reducing friction. I think AI holistically has got it, because if you just think about this being a conversation, it enables everything and anything. And there is no barrier then, age, demographic, geography, access to things. You don't need it. You don't need expensive tech, because you just have a conversation. And that, to me, is a real game changer in this. And that's why I'm feeling this is going to be so different to everything we've seen before.
Well, and it's funny because I'm obsessed with the right words and using the right language to define things. And I remind people that ChatGPT, generative AI, most people hear AI and shut down, but I'm like, it's a large language model, language being the middle word on purpose. Don't worry about large, don't worry about model, but it is just human communication. And I think a lot of people have lost their curiosity. And by the way, for those young experts, they're not curious because they say, well, I'm an expert at this. And so they just keep spouting the same stuff.
I think you're absolutely right. And, in my view, I think it's not anybody's fault, because this is how it's worked. And particularly when you look at the influencer community, when you look at social media, where it is all about being super confident, being overtly out there with your messages, with your propositions, with the storytelling that you do, it is probably no wonder that somebody wants to jump onto the AI wagon, does it in exactly the same way. Whereas actually, this is a very personal, for most people, a very personal experience. Once you get into and I'll call it the word, relationship with your AI, okay, it could be a lowercase r, you can decide. But once you get into that relationship with AI, it is very personal. You don't need other people to tell you this is how you do it, this is best practice. You just start communicating with it. And once you do that, it becomes yours. It becomes you. It becomes, as I said earlier, the mirror of what you need and the best value you're going to get from it. So I think there's almost this missing piece of the jigsaw that some people, I don't know whether it is an age thing, but I think it's about people who have been brought up or have very much been part of that influencer community, where it is all about the vanity metrics, the numbers, the number of followers, how much money did you make, etc., etc. AI is different in its relationship with human. It doesn't have to be done at scale. It can be one-to-one. And again, to me, as a confirmed introvert, that is really exciting. I can relate to that.
Well, okay, as a fellow confirmed introvert, I'm going to just say that to me, AI is books I can talk to and I don't have to listen to other people's noise. Like it's, we literally have all of the wisdom of humanity from beginning of recorded time now. It is a fascinating thing because you can personalize it. I like to have conversations with historical figures. Some, I'm guessing, are a little more accurate than others because, there's more written history around it. But again, as a child, I lived out on a farm and we had cold winters where we didn't leave the farm. Encyclopedias and books took me around the world and back in time. And now I think, what can we do with AI rather than, right now it's being treated as a toy and a lot of people are playing with the shiny object. But I think 2025 is going to be the year of the noise and the nonsense. And I think 2026 is going to be the year where people start to question and look for the truth in things rather than confirming biases and saying, yeah, you're right, this is the way it is.
It feels like, yeah, it's kind of this year's been the tornado and the dust will settle. And I think it'll
Yeah.
be very interesting to see who are the winners, what platforms, how do people want to consume it, how do people want to interact with it when the dust has settled. And I think at the moment, understandably, people love the shiny objects, the latest kind of video generation tool. It is exciting, it is fun, it's the playful side of us as humans, I think. But when it wants to get serious, and it can, and it will, as a commercial tool, I think it will become much more about how can this enable my strategy? How can this make me different to the competition in a commoditized marketplace where everybody looks and sounds the same? It's those kinds of conversations, I think, where it will start to add some real return on the value of the time you're spending with it. So yeah, I'm really confident and hopeful that will be the case. And as I say, I think those who spend more time with it now, playing, exploring, critiquing it, challenging it, those will be the ones who will see the dust settle fastest.
Yeah. I think, and again, I am excited. I'm an optimist. I think humanity will, we'll play a little and we'll kind of weave and lose our way. But I think at the end of the day, we will find the real value in this. Now, let's shift over to, we started this conversation talking about artificial intelligence optimization. I am, again, since you and I started talking, it seems like the LinkedIn algorithm's like, oh, Jeff wants to hear about this. And I'm not kidding. I got a video last night in my feed. I'm pretty sure the guy is about the same age as my oldest son, who's still in high school. I'm not picking on him, but it's really hard for me to look at a 20-year-old and believe him when he says I'm an expert and I can get you ranked at the top of SEO in ChatGPT. And for the record, I'm not an expert in this field. You are, but I could look at it and go, "Ooh, that's dangerous." Like it's just plain false. But clearly, he went to ChatGPT and typed in, "How do I get ranked in ChatGPT?" And it gave him an answer. And he recorded a video going, "I found the secret. I've unlocked the." His actual headline was, "I've unlocked the vault and I'm going to bring you all the gold in the world." And I was like, oh. So cringe aside, what are the facts about being found in the world of SEO with AI, generative AI?
So I think that there's a couple of things that I really want to talk about here. And I think one is very much the kind of the structure of what is going on. And then the second is very much the practicality of what you can do about it. So if you think about this, is from a structural perspective, what is happening is that we are using, and I would just use ChatGPT as a generic term, but we're using ChatGPT much as we would have done typically a Google search. So now, according to a lot of the latest research, between 6 and 8% of search on the planet is being done through going to something like ChatGPT and typing in a question. And then ChatGPT goes out to, as you say, all of the world's wisdom, i.e. the internet, and it sources a view, and it is just a view, on the answer that it feels would be most appropriate for you as an individual. So Jeff goes and searches, and then based on what Jeff has had as a conversation, it's created a memory for Jeff's GPT or Jeff's version of ChatGPT, and it will then give you an answer to your question. That is search from a GPT perspective. My answer will be subtly different because of the conversations that I've had with my version of ChatGPT. So what is happening here structurally is that you think you're doing a search, whereas in fact you're not. What you're doing is you're creating, let's call it an agent or an assistant that sits between you and the internet. And that agent is doing human-like searching to give you an answer. So if you just stop and think about that just for a moment, normally with Google, it's you and Google. Google gives you then a series of 10 billion results, and you as a human have to sift through them. Now imagine putting an agent or an assistant in between you and Google. That's what's happening here with search via AI. So basically what it's doing is it's saying, okay, I can see those 10 billion results. I'm going to amalgamate the first 6 or 7 of those because they seem to be the ones that are most relevant to the kind of person you are. And I'm going to give you a result, one result, and I'm going to give you a chance to go a little bit deeper if you want to, but I'm going to give you the answer. Now, that's a very different thing because it's no longer you doing the search as a human. It's an AI agent or assistant acting on your behalf.
Yeah.
So that's part one, which is a different kind of structure to what's going on. And that's what most people are currently struggling with is like, well, I don't know, how would I do AI optimization? Well, it's you don't think about the human, you think about the kind of questions that that agent is going to look to be answered. So that's the first point structurally.
Yeah.
So then the second thing is, okay, what is attractive then to an AI agent or an AI assistant? Because they're the one doing the search, not the human anymore. So remember, 6 to 8% of searches now on average are coming through these agents or assistants. So what they seem to be, and I can't guarantee this because nobody actually knows, and this is nobody actually knows, and this is including Google, nobody actually knows, but we think the current sort of, perceived wisdom is that those agents, those assistants are looking for conversational content. They're looking for answers to frequently asked questions. And in a nanosecond, they're putting those answers together and giving you your single answer.
Yeah.
So if you have content that is maybe thought leadership on a particular topic, maybe you've got a digital footprint where you've got a load of assets and resources that over the decades you've been pulling together. Maybe you've got data sheets, you've got brochures, you've got a website, you've got social media presence. What you need to think about to optimize for these agents that sit between the human who wants an answer and you is think about giving them content that is very kind of conversationally presented. So much as we've been talking about having a conversation with the AI wants a conversation, so to speak, with your content. So you have to make it very easy to consume. It has to feel like it's answering a multitude of questions. And in fact, actually, there is a field of wisdom at the moment that says FAQs, frequently answered questions, is a very good way of presenting your content. So that's a little snippet that seems to work quite nicely now. So if you haven't got an FAQ page on your website, get one built today, because that is key. And if you can present that back in a conversational way, and then in a nanosecond, ChatGPT or your preferred AI agent will amalgamate your content with others who are providing similar kinds of information, and you will be one of the quoted sources on that piece of information or the answer that goes back to the human. And that seems to be how it works. You want to be one of those quoted sources. And if you just leave your website as it's always been, you will not be on that list.
Well, and it's interesting. A lot of marketing fundamentals still are very relevant today because, if you're clear on who you serve, you understand the problems they solve. Probably a decade ago, I was at a conference where Ryan Dice spoke, and he said, if all you did today was record a short how to solve a problem video, and one a day you recorded the frequently asked questions your clients have, that's the best marketing on the planet because humans are looking for answers and they'll come to you. Now it seems like the agents are looking for those answers too.
Yeah, isn't it amusing and entertaining and encouraging that has actually played out? Because it means that actually good marketing and good business practice was good business practice and will still be good business practice into the future. So AI doesn't change that. AI enables that to be done at scale. Almost it supercharges it. So if you've got a good sound business that communicates well, you've plotted your customer journey, you value the experience and the time you spend with your customer, this is only going to benefit you. If you've been a shoddy, marketer, or you've had a really kind of ropey business that has really kind of just tried to kind of get through on the bare minimum level of service quality, you will not survive because the AIs will not rank you. You'll be seen through far more quickly than you ever would be by a human. They will figure that out and you will not score or rank. And that's going to get increasingly difficult for companies who don't take this seriously.
Well, and one thing I'm hearing between the lines, and I'm going to ask, and you can correct me, but there's a lot of, because it's my agent doing my research for me, it's going to have my biases, and it's kind of like the actual physical assistant who, oh, the boss is in a mood, I'm not going to show him the newspaper where we got the negative article. They're going to show the positive stuff. I think that's one of the problems we're going to see is you or I will sit down and ask our chat GPT. And again, I joke that it's Jeff GPT because it's customized to each of us. It's going to show us different results than somebody sitting across the street from us, or even in the same office at a different computer. They're going to see a different result.
And it is a fear that I have. And I have to say that this whole idea has, this is not a new idea. This is not new thinking. It's something that has been evolving and developing over, well, I'd say probably a couple of decades with the algorithms. I mean, you only have to look at, say, social media algorithms as we understand them collectively. The fact is that, you say something, the algorithm picks it up, and then the whole experience on that social network then is skewed in that direction because it makes assumptions. This is what you want to hear. And so your view of the world is then biased in that direction. You could say, well, positively, because I'm going to surround myself with stuff. But if you look at, say, your Facebook timeline, to use a very traditional social network now, it is very much biased with what you do and don't interact with. If you don't interact with friends and you just look at the news services or the community groups or the whatever, you won't see any friend traffic on your timeline. And that to me was just a real awakening, the fact that I'm getting into this almost ever increasing bubble of isolation. And I certainly do have a fear here. And I would agree with you, Jeff, that, there is a danger that we fall into that. So again, maybe we need to all individually take responsibility for, give me as far as you can, GPT, Jeff's GPT or Neil's GPT, give me an unbiased view, give me the market view, or give me a broad view that maybe challenges my assumptions, and get it to kind of push a little bit harder rather than just answer the question. Maybe this whole thing comes full circle back to, we need to challenge it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's, so I'll share a weird story, but for a while I spent time on LinkedIn. I'm not proud of it, but I love the M dash. And whenever somebody would attack the M dash, I would defend it. And the algorithms went, ooh, this is a topic that gets Jeff going. And it started sending me all the AI haters. And I'm like, oh my God, I do not want to be in this world. So I changed and I started saying how much I love using AI. And it was amazing because almost overnight, the algorithm stopped sending me the haters and started sending me the innovators. And I'm like, and I think this is something, a responsibility we have, is to curate our social media feeds, but more importantly, curate our AI feeds and ChatGPT. We can tell it, I know I have this bias. So for example, I tell it all the time, I am highly blunt, help me be less blunt. And and then I'll say, okay, I want to be blunt again, and then it'll sugarcoat something, and I'm like, that's not blunt. But it's cool because being autistic, I have one setting, it's blunt. And if you want not blunt, I really have to prep for it. But now I'm learning, I've created a little dial, and I say, okay, what would a 0 be? That's pure rip your skin off honesty, all the way over to somebody's going to thank you for your feedback. And it's been fascinating because I can see where things go now. But like we started with, this is like unprecedented, customized learning if we're willing to learn.
And it's the point that you made earlier, Jeff, which I want to come back to, which is that whole thing about critical thinking. If AI is meant to be reducing our critical thinking, what you just described there, to me, is a profound self-reflection, which is critical thinking. It's about analyzing, how am I in this situation? How do I respond in this situation? How could I improve it? To be able to get an AI to respond to that, you've got to think like you did. And so to me, this is a real enabler. I don't think it's inhibiting stuff. It's inhibiting the lazy.
Yep.
undoubtedly. But if you're willing to spend the time to do what you just did there, I think, you're going to reap the benefits. I really do believe that.
Well, it's fascinating and total tangent, but my kids' schools, I have one in junior high, one in high school, both have a blanket ban and say no AI. If we catch you using it, we're going to expel you. And I've learned not to bring up my views because I don't want them watching my kids closely. But my approach is, again, the teachers, and I know they're overworked, they've got their own issues, but rather than looking at it and saying, how can we use this? Like, I think it was Sal Khan, he came out with the Khan Academy and he said, oh my God, every student on the planet can have a customized tutor. And the world went, and moved on. And I'm like, no, everybody come back to this. We could all have a customized tutor. And so I've built custom tutors for both of my kids. And then when they changed, I made them learn how to build their own custom tutors. And I'm like, why aren't schools teaching this? Instead of saying no AI, let's say, here's how to use it responsibly.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's one of those sort of hopes, I guess, that we all have, those who can kind of already sort of seen that benefit and can understand that there's an opportunity here. This is not something to fear. This is something to embrace, but work with. It's not easy. And I think maybe some of the systems that we have, be it in education or in business, they kind of preclude that kind of free thinking a lot of the time, because it means you have to devote time, energy, and resource to changing something. Oh, we haven't got time or bandwidth to do that, so therefore we'll say no and we'll just lock it down. I see a lot of businesses as well who have grown up in a Microsoft Teams environment saying Copilot is the only AI we enable because it's safe. You're not allowed to use anything else. And I'm hearing that a lot, and I just feel so disappointed for people who say, yes, but I want to be using Perplexity for some research. I want to use Imagine Art to design something a little bit more fun. I want to use ChatGPT to go out and do some interesting strategic stuff. I don't want to be constrained. And yet the easy option is, let's just constrain because it doesn't take up bandwidth. It is such a shame. It's a frustration, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I'm laughing because there's an angry group I stepped into yesterday trying to ban shadow IT because, again, they're looking at corporate policy and what actual humans are doing. And again, instead of trying to block everything under the sun, let's explore how do we safely use this and recognize that, Copilot, love it. It's got some features and benefits, but it is not the only tool. And quite frankly, I've been hearing some interesting things about how it's accessing and releasing CRM data. So, there's a question about, and, between you and me, I cringed when Perplexity and OpenAI came out with their new browsers. I'm going to guess they were built for convenience with very little thought to security.
Yeah, I think the jury is definitely still out in many circles with regard to how much you're willing to actually put your credit card details into to make that purchase. Having said that, though, I think as an early iteration, and as long as we treat them as betas, I think we should be okay. But if you treat it as a beta test, it is phenomenally clever. I used Atlas to do a very simple food shop with the online food retailer that we use on a week-to-week basis. I didn't give it the option to actually make a purchase from the basket, but by giving it the list and just letting it go, just watching some of the decision making that it was doing, I asked it to source some no sugar beans, for example, some baked beans that I wanted no sugar. And the complex process, because it couldn't find that actual phrase on any of the products, it was going deep into, well, this one's low sugar, this one's reduced fat, this one's this one. I think he'll like this one the best, it was saying in the narrative. And I thought, that's fascinating to watch it thinking through the choices that it's making. And I think as a beta, that is great to watch because it gives you the confidence confidence that there's some diligence going on here, and it will be literally probably just the next version that will be secure and safe for the credit card details. So I think as long as you treat maybe some of these early things with a sort of a beta mindset, it's okay. It's okay to explore and play, but just be careful. No bank details, no credit cards, just explore.
I love that, and I think that's the piece I recommend to people is test. And once you've tested it, then you can decide if you want to trust it. But again, I'm not going to rush out and be the first person to put my credit card details in, and hopefully it doesn't wreck my credit history. Go buying 10,000 cans of beans because they have a sale on them and they're all sugar-free or something. Neil, I want to be respectful of your time and get you back to your day. Thank you for being on the show. Is there any parting comment you'd like to make to my viewers? Anything you'd like to say about how they can find you, connect with you?
So yes, very easy to find on LinkedIn, which is often the best place to get me, which is Neil Wilkins X, little kiss at the end of my name, Neil Wilkins X on LinkedIn, but also on Neil Wilkins Online. And if you're into podcasts, just the snappily titled Neil Wilkins podcast, can you see there's a theme going on here? It's always my name. So just search in your favorite AI or Google, if you're old school, the Neil Wilkins podcast, and you'll see lots of other content and ideas coming through on that channel too.
Awesome. Well, Neil, I want to thank you. It's a pleasure, and I'm going to encourage my audience to connect with you because good marketers need to know each other, and good businesses need good marketers today more than ever, I think. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. It's been great to chat.